Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Social Scientists Association, a warm welcome to the fourth in our seminar series on critical agrarian studies. We're very pleased to have with us this afternoon Dr. Dileepa Vitharana. Dr. Vitharana is a senior lecturer in the Department of Mathematics and Philosophy of Engineering at the Open University of Sri Lanka. His research interests include the politics of urban development, engineering and nationalism, the history of technical education, energy and environment policy and practice, and multilateral and bilateral trade agreements. Most recently, his book, Negotiating Power and Constructing the Nation, Engineering in Sri Lanka, has been published by Aberdeen Academic Publishers, and we are delighted to have Dr. Dileepa Vitharana with us this afternoon to introduce us to one or two of the many arguments and the rich material which is in his book and which he has been reflecting and researching on for many years. Dileepa, please. Floor is yours. Dileepa will speak for about, as usual, perhaps around 40 minutes, maybe or so, and then we'll have some open discussion. Thank you.
So I will sit and talk. So what I think I will do this evening is since this title seems a bit strange, like, connecting concepts and terms that are not, from the outlook, from the surface, not connected very well. I will read a bit, I will give you a introduction, and then without going to a very conceptual discussion, I will relate you three stories. So the stories will give you an idea of what I am trying to tell you, right? So it's story time. So I will read this first, my introduction, a very brief one. The era that we thought technology or engineering is a separate autonomous field, unconnected to everything else, was over at least 6 to 7 decades ago. This happens with the emergence of the new stream, science and technology studies, thick lines dividing spheres. Technology with society, culture, or nationalism started disappearing since then. The world we live is no more a social world, but a socio-technical world, where social, technical are closely connected and enmeshed. It is with that spirit I will conduct this talk with the title, The Rural Engineering and Nationalism, the Case of Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project. Weber Bichker, one of the pioneers of science and technology studies, writing an interesting paper in 2007 on water engineering projects in India, the Netherlands, and in New Orleans, concludes that water-related technological systems are thick in connections and linkages, thick with values, thick with power, and thick with politics. Narmada Dam in India, a project we can compare with Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project in relation to their inherent complexity, technical complexity, is considered by Bichker as too thick for him to deal with in a single paper. So I would like to reword Bichker by saying Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project, the largest ever agrarian development project implemented in recent times, is thick with connections and linkages, thick with values, thick with power, thick with politics, and most of all, even thicker with nationalism. I mean Sinhala nationalism. So my proposal here is that the Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project is about rural agrarian development, engineering, and Sinhala nationalism, and they are inseparably, intimately linked. So it's, I mean, the conventional, according to the conventional thinking, you can, think of these areas as separate areas, but my argument is that they are not separate at all, right? So, so that is the brief introduction, and then I will happily go to my story, story time, right? So now when it comes to engineering projects, now when you go through the literature, right, especially literature on technology, engineering, and nationalism, the role the engineering project plays when it comes to nationalism is a discourse generating role. I mean, around the technical object or the technical system or the technological project, a discourse is constructed. So when you go through literature, I think almost more than 90% of literature is about this discursive role engineering plays in nationalism, right? So my first story is about that. And there are two more stories where when I conduct my studies, I found that technology plays a role not just in constructing a discourse, but the project itself become nationalist materially, right? So there are two more stories. So these are the three stories. So I will go to the first one. I don't know whether you have read this book, The Chronicle of Mahaweli Vansha. I think it's very less known, and maybe one reason is that it's in Sinhala language, and I mean I have not seen a reference to that, in my when I went through my literature. The only place where I found it was in the book this Nalini Hennayaka wrote. It was about Mahaweli development, and there she was referring to a booklet called Mahaweli Saga, not to the Chronicle of Mahaweli, not to Mahaweli Vansha. And yeah, I think it's a smaller version of this whole thing. This writing a chronicle, like Mahavansha, Chulavansha, and all these other Vanshas, this idea came to actually Minister Gamini Disanayaka's mind in 1980s, and the idea conceived in 1981, in fact, and this whole project was inaugurated in 1982, and initially it was a discussion where Mr. Gamini Disanayaka chaired the meeting, and it was led by W.J.M. Lokubandara. He was the person who led the discussion. So this chronicle is about an attempt to construct an unproblematic case to justify Sinhala claim over the entire island. So that was if you think about the ultimate objective of that, chronicle, it was to justify the claim for the entire island by the Sinhalese. So they are, the entire country is identified as three Sinhala. So even whether there is a sub kingdom, for example, Jaffna, even those come under three Sinhala. So you don't give that much of a prominence to the fact that it was a Tamil kingdom, right? So, and and I mean, very liberate. When it comes to villagers also, I mean, very carelessly, they were all called as Sinhala villagers. And when it comes to cities in Mahaweli, Sinhala cities. So, there are 2 volumes of the Chronicle of Mahaweli. In the first volume, there are 14 chapters, and in the second volume, there are 10 chapters. So, altogether, 24 chapters. And this was written by a committee, a group of 27 authors, including academics, civil servants, engineers, broadcasters, artists, Ayurvedic doctors, scientists, historians, archaeologists, sociologists, experts in Sinhala and Pali languages. So it's a diverse group with diverse speciality, expertise, and historians, archaeologists, sociologists, and experts in Sinhala and Pali languages played a major role in writing this book, in conceptualization, right? And when you take this 24 chapters, there are 2 highlights. One is to justify the claim for claim by Sinhalese for the entire island. That is one thing, one highlight. The other highlight is to construct a nostalgic version or an image of uncomplicated and a simple lives of Sinhalese living in Mahaweli Valley, right? Simple, uncomplicated villages, undisturbed, non-polluted villages living in those areas. So those are the 2 highlights. And not only the content, but even the way the space is allocated was done in such a way to establish the fact that the island is for Sinhalese. Now, if I give you an example. Now, there are 24 chapters, right? References to Tamils and Muslims come in just a single chapter out of the 24. And there are 647 pages. And references to Tamils and Muslims come in just 1.5 pages out of the 647, right? Now, when it comes to this nostalgic view of uncomplicated Sinhalese living in Mahaweli Valley, now we can identify the list of characteristics. For example, love for humankind. So it comes again and again to say that these villages have a love for humankind, and they have an ability to coexist. A desire for equality, thankfulness, respect, aesthetic sensitivity. I mean, these are the kind of features of these villagers who are living in these areas, and so I mean, it's interesting, right? So we are also meeting people, but in Mahaweli, once if you meet villagers living in these areas, you will meet these kinds of people, right? Love, with a love for humankind, ability to coexist, desire for equality, thankfulness, respect, aesthetic sensitivity, and not just that, it also carries, in a way, when you go through the descriptions, Victorian family values. I will give a give an example to this. Now it gives in note 73, I will read this out. The narrative describes this relationship in detail. The father occupies a prestigious position within the family. Now this is about villagers living in these areas, right? The father occupies a prestigious position within the family and commands love and respectful obedience from its members. The mother, in the meantime, helps the father in implementing the decisions taken by him. While extending loving respect towards her husband, the wife never behaves as an equal to him in public. One indication of this respect is refraining from sitting at the same level as her husband. She never argues and extends her consent to decision taken by her husband. As a housewife, it is her responsibility to engage in housework. The sexual and romantic lives of the parents are hidden from their children. A common sight in a village is to see the mother walks a few steps behind the father. The woman is used to carry all weight, including bags and children. The narrative identifies this as a model relationship where gender roles are clearly defined and describes the relationship in detail. So, this is the kind of relationships men and women have in this area, right? So that's how Mahaweli Bansiya described their family lives. So in a way, this suits well with the middle class imagination of a pure, undisturbed village, right? I think even when you if you are in touch with Nalindu Silva's, writings and the thinking of that group, they have that kind of a image about the rural life. So this is about the major, the Agrarian Development Project that we have implemented in recent times, and this whole discourse was constructed around Mahaweli Development Project, right? And but there are a few contradictions also, in the sense that there are few exceptions in the Chronicle of Mahaweli that doesn't go in line with the general thinking, where you say that the entire country belongs to Sinhalese, and the village life there is so nice and simple. One place is the discussion of arts and crafts, where there's a chapter on arts and crafts where it says that we were heavily influenced by the Indian traditions. So that stays as a isolated kind of a comment, right? And there is another mismatch. A survey was conducted in a traditional village. Now, as a part of this chronicle writing, I think a group of some of them have conducted a survey in Millava, Polonnaruwa, where it gives statistics. It says, statistics from 1970 to 1980. So, the percentage of Sinhalese in Millava in 1970 was 42. And by 1980, it has increased up to 69. Tamils in 70, 23% has decreased to 2%. Sinhala Buddhist in 70, 73%, it has increased up to 98% by 1980. And Tamil Buddhists were also there. By 1970, 11%. By 80, it was 0. So, they have vanished. Sinhala Hindus were also there by 1974%, and they disappeared by 1980. Tamil Hindus 12%, it decreased to 2% by 1980, right? So, this gives another story, like, there were a kind of a significant Tamil presence by 1970, and but if you take the entire storyline, it disregards that aspect, right? So that is my first story. So it kind of creates a kind of a uncomplicated narrative about Mahaweli Valley, and so it was done in parallel to the construction of the Mahaweli Development, Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project in 1980s, right? So that is my first story, and then I will come to the second story. It's about an operation that has not received attention, right? And it's fairly unknown for several reasons. And so I give the title to this operation as Yannoya Malwatuoya Maduroya operation. Now, this happened in 1983 from April to December. And I mean, for me, it is fascinating in the sense that a group of engineers, especially a group of engineers, were involved in this project. Now, so how I came to know about this, if it is unknown, is that there are two publications in English medium. One is the 1988 book written by Herman Malinga Gunaratne with the title For a Sovereign State. In fact, it is interesting that this book was given, I mean Champika told me about this book while he was working with me at the Open University, Champika Ranawada. So it's available at our library. So I read that book in, I think, 1990s, right? It was published in 1989. Its title is For a Sovereign State. Herman Malinga Gunaratne is an architect of this operation, right? I will explain what it is, right? And then he has again written about it in Sunday Times in 1990 with the title Destroying the Basis of Elam. So that is the other two documents available which is accessible to us. But then when I search further, I found that UTHRJ report in 1993 also carries a small section of that entire operation, right? It's there in UTHRJ. I mean, there were several documents, I think, in 1993 in one of the papers. But very interestingly, there is an e-book called Pirapahara. It's available online, and if you check the 22nd chapter, it gives a detailed description of this entire operation. So I will describe what it is. This happened at the 7th floor office of Malinga Gunaratne, who was an additional general manager of Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau, CECB. It's one of the main engineering arms of the state. So if you know the tall building next to Hyde Park, where you have Mahaweli Authority, the Ministry of those days, Land Development and Mahaweli Development, and Central Engineering Consultants Bureau, all three institutions were located in that single building just next to Hyde Park. And this entire operation happened at the 7th floor of that building. Herman Malinga was an additional general manager of the CECB, right? And there were several high officials involved with this operation. Pandita Ratna, he was, I think, the chairman of UNP at some point also, no? Yeah. And he was also the Director General of Mahaweli Authority those days, right? And then high-profile engineers, senior engineers, for example, General Manager of CECB, Kulathunga, and DGM of CECB, Deputy General Manager, then Director Planning Mahaweli, Karunathilaka. He was the kind of mastermind behind this operation. And then Gamini Disanayaka, as the minister, was also aware of that, right? So what it was is that so this is the one. What they were, this is in 1983, right? This, in the same year, the 83 riots happened, but this started in April, the designing, and it ended in December 83. So we had July riots in between. So their mission was to, you can see the Elam, the traditional homeland of Tamils, right? From let's say Puttalam, no, not Chilau, like Puttalam or Chilau, and then go to the north and then comes to this end, right? So the idea was to discontinue, break the continuity of the traditional homeland of Tamils by creating 3 settlements using three rivers, right? Maduroya, Yarnoya, and Malwatuya. So using the water of these 3 rivers, it became a part of the Mahaweli Development Project. So this was not in the original master plan. I think I forgot to tell you about the master plan, right? Now, Mahaweli Development Project became the Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project in 1977. So it became accelerated because originally the project was for 30 years, and that was designed in 1950s. First, the US Operation Mission, it's the equivalent of USAID at the moment. The US Operation Mission and Irrigation Department conducted a survey in 1958 to 1962 during these 4 years. And then another study was conducted, to use Mahaweli water for irrigation. That was the purpose, right? And then another study was conducted from 1965 to 69 by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, and the Sri Lankan counterparts. So then, as a result of the second study, a master plan was developed for Mahaweli development, right? So there were a few characteristic features of highlights of the master plan. One is it was to be completed in 30 years, and the second thing is in 3 stages. And the most interesting highlight is it included Moragakanda Reservoir, one of the reservoirs in the original plan, and a canal to north to supply water to Jaffna, right, to the north. So Moragakanda, and that canal is famously called North Central Province Canal, right? And the idea was to take water from Mahaweli water to the Iranamadu tank, and then take that water to north. The colonization, the 3 colonies that was introduced as a part of this operation. So what has happened is, they had an order of implementing these 3 reservoirs. Yeah, first Yarnoya, using Yarnoya water, Yarnoya settlement, then using Malwatuya water, Malwatuya settlement, and then using Maduroya water, Maduroya settlement. That was the order. The first was the Yarnoya, then Malwatuya, and then Maduroya. But what has happened is, while they were planning this activity to break the traditional homeland of Tamils at 3 places, by accident, this Herman Malinga Gururatna met Bimulagala Hamduru. I think you have heard of him. He's no more there. He his temple was in Vimulagala. So he offered his help to colonize people, Sinhalese, in the Madhurai settlement, right? It was the last priority in the original plan, but he offered his help, right? So what happened is, so they kind of changed their plans, and Vimulagala Thera, I think within a week or two, mobilized 40,000 people to come and settle in Madurai, right? So it became a major news, and then actually the entire plan backfired in the sense that it happened in such a quick time. In 2 weeks' time, 40,000 people were taken to Madurai, and then there were resistance from the Tamil side, right? And especially the government agent of Batikolo. And then Minister Devanayagam, and then the Tamil United Liberation Front, right? TULF leadership was in India, and they all kind of complained to the President Jayawardena regarding this, right? So it became a major issue. It became an international issue where even India was concerned. So even though the plot was made and it was designed to break the homeland, because of this, the entire operation backfired, right? It misfired. Now you can see the master plan, where, you know, according to the master plan, that the first one, that is which is in green color, is the Mahaweli Mahaweli Development Plan in the master plan. The original plan, right? Then the map at the bottom, the left-hand corner, is where that the map, you know, the map changed with the introduction of this operation. Like, and you can see that there are, you know, 3 more additions to the map, right? So this means the technical design of the Accelerated Mahaweli Development Plan, right? So why these changes happen is not because of any technical reason, but because of, you know, Sinhala nationalist and political reasons, right? So that is why I say that not only the narrative, but the engineering design can also be, you know, nationalistic. So that is the second story I am telling you, and there is another interesting, very interesting third story. It's also about how the engineering design can get nationalistic. Now, I think I got kind of mixed up with my pages, and so I was referring to North Central Province Canal before, but now the third example is about the North Central Province Canal. So the third story I am telling is about the North Central Province Canal. Now, I already told you about this. Now, in the original master plan, there was a canal to supply water, Mahaweli water, to Jaffna, to the north, right? It was to feed Iranamadu tank, and then from Iranamadu to take water upwards. And so Moragahakanda reservoir played a major role in that. But what has happened in 1977 is, you know, when the master plan became the Accelerated Mahaweli Development Plan, this Moragahakanda reservoir and the North Central Province Canal was dropped. Yeah, it was dropped. And now there is a very, for engineers, there is a very interesting story behind this. Now, during that time, there was a debate. By 1997, there were 2 options available to have this Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project. One is to have high Victoria and low Randanigal. That means the dam of the Victoria reservoir, is high. It's high, and the dam of the Randanigal reservoir is low. So that is one option. So that is called high Victoria, low Randanigal option. And there was another option, low Victoria, high Randanigal option. That means the dam of Victoria is lower and the dam of the Randanigal is higher. So there was a big debate among engineers regarding this choice, right? But for very interesting reasons, Sinhala engineers promoted high Victoria and low Randanigal. And Tamil engineers promoted low Victoria and high Randanigal. Normally, if it is an argument about engineering, you can't assume that the entire group of Tamil engineers, arguing for a one technical solution, and a group of Tamil engineers arguing for another technical. So now, in fact, this low Victoria, high Randanigal case is the case where you can have the NCP canal, where you can take water to the north, right? So this was the, now at the CECB, Central Engineering Consultant Bureau, Tamil engineers were in favor of that from 1960s and 70s, right? Because Tamil engineers dominated CECB those days, right? But then by 1970s, the picture changed. So I conducted the interviews with some of the high officials who were there those days, and there are a lot of stories, and they say that one very senior engineer managed to convince J.R. Jayawardena to go for the high Victoria, low Randanigal option, which was the option favored by the group of Sinhala engineers, the option that had no NCP canal, right? So it was about whether to give Mahaweli water to the north or not. So it represented technically in this debate, high Victoria versus Randanigal, high Victoria, low Randanigal, and low Victoria, high Randanigal. And there is another side story, and because this is story time, I will tell that. Minister of Power and Highways, those days was Mr. Maithripala Senanayake, right? Powerful minister in Sirima Bandaranaike government from 1970 to 77. And Mahaweli development came under him. So it says that during those days, before this happened, before 1977, at a time where even CECB was dominated by Tamil engineers, the idea was to implement this master plan, right? Even Sirima Bandaranaike's time, it was they had a 30-year plan to divert Mahaweli, right? So they were following the master plan, and Maithripala Senanayake was the minister who was responsible for this. So Mahaweli diversion came under him, right? During 1970 and 77, and it says he was in favor of diversion of Mahaweli to north, taking water to Jaffna, and he was influenced by he was influenced to think so because of two reasons. One is the secretary, Sivanyanam. Sivanyanam was the secretary of the ministry, where he was the minister, and he is a Tamil. So that is one argument. And the second theory is that Ranji Hardy, his new wife, high-profile Tamil journalist, also influenced him. And since I would like to read a footnote to tell this. An unclassified cable sent from the Embassy of United States in Colombo in 1976 and published by WikiLeaks identified Maithripala Senanayake as being something of a bridge to Tamil community in Sri Lanka after his marriage in 1963 to Ranji Hardy, a Tamil. Mrs. Ranji Senanayake, aged in her late 40s, is colourful former newspaper woman. Her race, Tamil religion, Anglican, were thought to be political. Liability for Senanayaka's career at time of their marriage in 1963. However, this does not appear to have been so. Mrs. Senanayake is said to be bright, tough and very ambitious for her husband. She has made no secret of her belief that her husband should someday become Prime Minister. Continued the cable. Senanayaka's relationship with Hardy and her influence on him were topics of public discussion in 1960s, right? Imbulana refers to one such incident in Parliament where Maithripala Senanayake kept taunting Dudley Senanayake over the concessions Dudley's government was allegedly granting to Tamils. So there he was not taking pro-Tamil stand, right, Senanayake? So he was challenging Dudley Senanayake, right? Dudley is said to have shot back, Mr. Speaker, I must congratulate the Honourable Member for Madhavachia on his finding a way to observe Sinhala only by day and the reasonable use of Tamil by night. So I mean, that's why I said this is a side story. So you know, when it comes to the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, now when when you talk about, you know, engineering structures and, you know, things like that, you know, the systems, the projects, they are heavily influenced by, you know, various other social, cultural, political factors and nationalist factors. Now, so the point I'm trying to make here is that, you know, when it comes to accelerated Mahaweli development, I mean, if you go through the three stories I related. Now, one is about Mahaweli Vansha, where you construct a, you know, narrative to tell the society what Mahaweli development means, right? Then, you know, when it comes to even planning, designing the engineering project, one is about the Yannoya Malwatuya Maduroya operation, where, you know, the Mahaweli design was altered to damage or break the traditional homeland of Tamils at 3 positions, right? To make it discontinued, right? And then whether to provide water to the north or not provide water was also reflected in the kind of, you know, technical design. So one may wonder whether Mahaweli is in fact an engineering project or a project you know, serving Sinhala nationalism, or a project about agrarian development. What it is? Is it an engineering project, or a Sinhala nationalist project, or an agrarian development project? I mean, so I think so that is what this science and technology studies has contributed to us, because now the spheres we considered totally isolated, with no connection to each other, is no more there. The thick dividing lines are no more there. It's all enmeshed, mixed, interconnected. Shall I stop here? Yeah.
Thank you. so much. Thank you so much, Philip, for giving us these stories, each story being a way to enter a particular set of issues, which you have framed as the rural engineering and nationalism in Sri Lanka. What Dilip has done is drawn from a much larger work, which I mentioned right at the beginning, his book, Negotiating Power, and here power is there's a play, I'm sure, on the power we need, and constructing the nation, subtitled Engineering in Sri Lanka. So this is a chance for us to probe Dilip a little further, both on what he has shared with us, but I'm sure also on themes which he couldn't touch on, but which are part of his larger work. So the larger work, today we asked him to focus on the Accelerated Mahaweli Development Project, but that's not his only focus within this particular book. But the Mahaweli Scheme was of interest to us as part of this series, the Critical Agrarian Study series here at SSA, because, as Deepa mentioned, it was the preeminent rural development project of a particular period in time. The objective, remember, being that here was the opportunity to cultivate lands that had been left uncultivated for many centuries. Here was an opportunity to provide land to those who were landless or land hungry in the wet zone, but maybe even, as you heard from the story of the Dimbulugala Amaduru, already in Polonnaruwa there were people who were land hungry, I guess, so he needed to look for alternatives for them. And Dilip also mentioned, a sort of a national culturalist anxiety that what has happened to our peasantry? We need to somehow also maintain this construct of this Arcadia, this rural idyll, this happy place where people farm in the daytime and worship in their temple in the evening, and then engage in certain rituals or customs or practices at other times, and live in complete harmony. So this idea of equality, so in other words, you are going to create virtuous peasants, because the peasants whom we had ceased to be virtuous. Perhaps there was alcoholicism in their family, perhaps they were in debt, perhaps they abandoned their households, but so they had ceased to be virtuous. So let us now have virtuous peasants with these virtues. And among the virtues you mentioned was equality. So equality again suggesting that somehow everything that was in that village community was going to be shared in an equitable way among them. We were all going to live in harmony together. No rich, no poor. We're all in this together, and we are very similar because we speak the same language, we worship in the same way, and so on. So much there, Dilip, and so I just wanted to pick up on a few of those things before inviting you all to please put your questions or pose your own thoughts to Dilip.